All right, well, it's good to see everyone. My name's Bill. I'm in Vermont, and I'll tell you about what we're up to over there. This is our the team here, and Veronica, and I don't know if Mark is here. No, they happened to visit us, so I thought I'd include them in the photograph. And this work is also being done with Kristen Ross, who is a faculty member at Vermont State University as well, a restoration ecologist. So I'll just talk about the situation in Vermont in case you're not familiar, and then very briefly on our version of Project Itch, very brief, and then the vegetation management, which has been the focus of our work last summer and going forward. So in Vermont, we have some of the highest per capita rates of Lyme disease reporting in the country. When you see a number one, this is the CDC data by year, and the number one means we were the highest per capita incidence, so not number one in a good way. The data, as you probably are aware, after 2020, 2021 kind of falls off, and there's probably an updated graph. The maps up there are just showing over time at the county level how the per capita rates of reporting vary by county. I'm in Rutland County. The study sites are highlighted in the squares there, and I just put this together for this talk, the three maps, and things look similar over time, but maybe changing a little bit. Rutland County is not that dark color anymore, so things might be shifting around a little bit. But we have a lot of ticks and a lot of cases of Lyme disease and anaplasmosis and babesiosis. I'm starting to realize is a much bigger problem than I've been realizing. Just talking to people from my area, I've talked to multiple people who've had it, but maybe because I'm a tick biologist, I get that kinds of feedback. But we have babesiosis for sure. I've been doing some long-term monitoring at several sites in Rutland County. This is just one of them, and I haven't put on the 2024 data yet. But I guess the take-home message here is that things fluctuate. Every other year they alternate, and there's just a paper that came out saying, hey, Lyme disease risk is lower in even numbered years, and that's consistent with our tick data. 2024 was low, possibly one of our lowest years. I haven't put it on yet. And Dave Allen at Middlebury College has the same results for Addison County, which is a little bit further north, and he was able to connect this back to the host populations as well. So they're probably, and this is Dave Allen's data, it's unpublished, but I don't think he'd mind me telling you that they seem to be tracking their food source, the white-footed mouse, for example. So really briefly on Project Itch, I had a student from my lab work with Jason Hill, who's at the Vermont Center for Eco Studies on the eastern side, almost due east from where my sites are, in the Dartmouth area. So he's working in New Hampshire and Vermont. And what he's doing is testing, he's following the PCOs who are going in and spraying with essential oils. That's the big product on the eastern side. We don't have that happening in Rutland County. And he's going in before and after they spray and measuring tick densities as well as the effects on insect communities. So this is a beat sheet right there, and you just whack the shrubs and collect the insects and see what you've got. And then he's doing some dragging as well. I was shocked. I have never given much thought to dragging on lawns, but the day I was out, he was finding lots of ticks on the lawn. And I guess that might not be a surprise to many of you, but I didn't think he was going to find any, but he did. So that's just a brief on what Jason's up to, and he will be. I think he shared some of the data in an earlier talk, and he'll be releasing papers over the next few months and years, I imagine. So our focus in Rutland County is on vegetation management. We thought that this was a good fit for how landowners are likely to respond to ticks. We have very large properties. It's very common for someone to have 10 acres or 30 acres, or more. And people are very intimately connected to their landscape. They're using their land, and they take things into their own hands. But vegetation management seemed like a good fit for what people might be able and willing to do. And as I'm gonna, if you're not familiar with why vegetation is important, I'll give you a brief summary. So we're interested in understanding the link between invasive plants and ticks and which ones might be associated with tick populations, and can we reduce tick populations by managing vegetation. So on the right is an infestation of Japanese barberry. That is about, it's a relatively small area, but that's about as much as we see in Vermont. So that's a high infestation, but most of the state, it's still fairly new. And then we're also looking at some native plants, and the best native plant we could find that has the similar sort of density as barberry or honeysuckle are native ferns. So that's why we're looking at those as well as possible habitat for ticks. So Japanese barberry, this is what it looks like. Another shot of that infestation. If you go out now, and there are these nice, pretty red berries. This is just a plant that is sort of free for the most part from herbivory, so it can spread very quickly. At the same time, they're filling the space where deer are browsing native plants, right? So there's a forest health issue here. And there's been a lot of research, especially in Connecticut, on the effects of barberry. And I pulled up this study by Scott Williams. Just the graph was just pretty straightforward, and showing that when you remove barberry, you see a reduction in ticks. And if there's no barberry to begin with, you have a few ticks as well. And what Scott is finding is that the ticks seem to like the habitat. It could have to do with relative humidity. Their primary host, the white-footed mouse, likes to hang out in barberry as well. So there's easy transmission of, well, there's a food source there, and then transmission of Borrelia burgdorferi, the pathogen that causes Lyme disease. We're also looking at Japanese honeysuckle in general, not just Japanese, the bush honeysuckle. And this is another invasive plant that is believed to propagate tick populations for a different reason, because it's the deer tend to like this habitat as a refuge. So when you get these high densities of honeysuckle, and this is some work that Brian Allen did in the Midwest on the Lone Star tick. And when you have these high infestations of honeysuckle, you tend to have lots of deer, and the data here is the dung clusters of deer, and then high rates of infection with Ehrlichia. So this is just an example of one study on honeysuckle. So we have these two plants in our study sites in varying levels. And so we set up last summer I'll go through the experimental design. And you can tell me if we went overboard or not. We were trying to be as unbiased as possible. We didn't want to just say invaded and uninvaded. We wanted to have an unbiased look at the different sites and a way to quantify. So the first thing we did is we ran some transects as much as we could to get the area, a representative area of our study sites. These are all private land, so we were constrained by property boundaries in many cases. And so we ran these transects and then looked at vegetation using a belt transect, 1 meter, 2 meter long belt, and just every 10 meters stopping, and the students would rank from 0 to 3 how infested the location was with these invasive plants. Okay, so the reds are invaded, the lighter colors uninvaded. And we have these 4 sites. 2 of them are managed, and it's by the landowners, just out of our control before we even started. One was in this case, this is where that heavy barberry infestation is. This is another property, another owner, and then this owner had someone, in fact, a former colleague of mine who's a plant ecologist, pull out, he had his sons go in and pull out their barberry. So we have this natural experiment, high barberry, no barberry. Up there, this one up there, the owner sprayed with he had a lot of ticks, and he just decided to spray his barberry with glyphosate, and he did cut the ticks down. And then on the left is another landowner who has not managed, right? And then we have these 2 unmanaged areas. So we got the qualitative vegetation data. And then the next thing we did, and this is just one example, we got the qualitative data. Then we went in and set up research plots. We found, okay, for example, this is an invaded area, so we put some research plots in there. Higher up, we found an area kind of to the left there that low invaded but high in ferns. That's HF, so we put some plots in there, and then a lower invaded area out further out there. So using the qualitative data, we set up these research 3-meter by 3-meter plots where we would really comprehensively look at the vegetation, characterize everything, and then do flagging for the ticks, right? And so 3 meters by 3 meters was like the largest area we thought we could reasonably do to do this work. And so we repeated this at all 4 sites. They didn't all have, usually we had at least two areas. So instead of like 3 clusters, there might have been 2 at the other sites, if that makes sense. This is just another example of what I just explained, where we had the qualitative analysis, and then we put in plots, high fern. This is an interesting site because this site has no invasive species. Like literally, it's like so healthy looking, although maybe not as much understory either, because there are a lot of deer here. So high deer, low invaded, and it's our tickiest site. In fact, of all my sites, this is now the tickiest, so go figure. So we can at least look at ferns here and see if that's doing something. And this will be interesting to track over time. Are we going to see an invasion of invasive plants over time? So what you're looking at is the different sites. So site 1, the high invaded area, there were 2 high invaded areas in site 1. It just shows they're organized by high invaded, low invaded, and fern. And the results are not surprising, right? The greens are the honeysuckle and barberry, and we included buckthorn in there. And then the purples are the fern. So the pattern it's not surprising, but there is a range. So it's not clear cut, like totally invaded, totally uninvaded. Is that data going to matter? Well, we'll find out. We also have other plant data I'm not showing here, so we can bring in. We have everything in the understory, overstory, so we could possibly do a more like a community signature if we wanted to. I'm not sure if it's going to show much, but we have that data. And then we did the flagging. We're changing, so we're going to try out a new flag this summer. It's a heavier cotton. It's like a rubberized cotton, and because it's really hard in the thick barberry, we need something a little more durable. So we're going to try that out. I almost shouldn't show you this data because it's too early. We did this summer sampling. We had to set up all the vegetation plots. Then we started sampling. We were past the nymphal peak. That said, and the numbers were really low. So you're seeing like high invasive, you see more ticks, right? High fern, low, these are low invaded and not much different. So you might say, yeah, those 3 follow the pattern, but it's a very limited data set. And then this one, of course, does not fit the pattern, right? And so we just don't know if that's meaningful or not. It was pretty late in the season. We're still also getting the baseline data for these sites to know like how many ticks they have in the first place. And so, yeah, I just want to acknowledge this. Based on our very limited data, we're not seeing the pattern, but I'll tell you what happens this fall. So we're going to go out this fall, and so these are the next steps. So we're going to start sampling. I have to go out tomorrow and get this started. Tom made me feel a little bit better that maybe I'm not too late yet. I got worried that I was getting late with the adults. So we'll flag and we'll see what we come up with. We'll do the same. So we have these plots set up, so we'll flag again next summer and next fall. Then we'll have 2 years of baseline data, which my long-term data set, that suggests you need at least 2 years of baseline because the populations fluctuate. And then we'll try some sort of intervention where it might have to be a limited to begin with, but remove some plants, and then we can track that over. So this is year 3, right? So we can at the very start of year 4, we can manage, and then we'll have year 4 and 5 to track the results. So that's what we're up to, and just some people to thank, and I'll take any questions if there's time.